Meet Pete. Pete doesn't know it yet, but in 3 hours and 41 minutes at 7:43 a.m., he will be rushing his pregnant wife Abby to the hospital. He won't be thinking about whether his car is charged and able to safely cover the distance from here to there, because the engineers who designed and built Pete's car already thought all about it. SAE International assembled a team of engineers from all over the world to think systematically about the charging of Pete's car. These engineers developed a series of standards that made mass production of Pete's car safe, affordable, and environmentally sustainable. But Pete won't have to think about any of that. He's probably never even heard of us. And we're fine with that. Because in helping the engineers keep Pete's car fully charged and safe, we've done our job. Sleep well, Pete.
Joining us today and to the SAE Detroit section for hosting this event. I am Matthew Meyer, your moderator. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm an SAE member from the Detroit section, and I graduated from Lawrence Tech University. I was in their Formula SAE program, and I was also the student chapter president. And today I now work at General Motors as an EV propulsion lead engineer. Before we start, I just want to address a couple household items. All participants are muted with the camera off to keep the integrity of the meeting. Please do not attempt to unmute yourself or turn on your camera during this discussion out of courtesy to our speaker. We do encourage you to use the chat function to ask any questions that you may have. If you do have some, you can start now. Also, for your benefit, this video is being recorded and will be posted on the SAE Detroit section YouTube channel at a later date. Today, we're going to be hearing from Richard LePage, who's in the Electrified Powertrain Engineering D&R group at Ford Motor Company. Richard will provide you an overview of the cost event that will provide information to make your Formula SAE team more successful. The discussion will give you the opportunity to understand the cost event and to ask questions. Welcome, Richard. How about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Yep. Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. So today is going to be the Formula SAE cost event overview presentation. Thank you, Matt, for your introduction. A little bit about myself. My name is Richard LePage. I'm a Ford Electrified Powertrain Engineer, D&R at Ford. Was a Wayne State alumni for 8 years. Did my undergrad and my master's both in mechanical engineering. And during my tenure at Wayne State, I was part of the Formula SAE team there. 2 years as chassis director, 2 years recently as a cost judge. This will be my third year going in. And during my time at Wayne State, for a little bit of experience, we did pretty well. We placed first and second a few times at competition. So any questions you guys might have or any input that you need, I'm a pretty good source for that type of stuff. And a little advertising for Formula SAE. I was hired directly at Ford because of my involvement in FSAE as my recruiter at Ford was directly involved in the SAE competition, and that's how I got my job. So a little bit of good information for you guys for taking part in SAE. All right. So hopefully with this presentation, you too can win costs and bring home some trophies to your home school. Out of all the events at SAE, cost is the one that you can easily win if you put some time and effort into it. So that's what we're hoping to help you guys do today. Our introduction. So out of the 1,000 points at competition, 100 points go to cost. So 10% of your actual score is your cost score. The reason we do this is cost and budgeting is a significant part in engineering. You can design the fastest, coolest looking FSAE car, but if it's $1 million car, it's not going to sell. So it's about making trade-offs and decisions between what you put into the vehicle and the cost to make those components, and is there a cheaper way to do it or a better way to do it. You're going to learn how to create a bill of materials. Having a bill of materials is extremely important, not just for the cost event, but also for your manufacturing of your vehicle. If you have a full list of what you need to make, it'll help you with your costs report, but it'll also help you make sure that you're building your car and meeting your deadlines. You're going to learn how to design for manufacturing. Again, you can design, the craziest component in CAD, but if you can't machine it or cast it or shape it in some way, again, it's not going to work out for you guys. So in the cost event, there are three parts. There's the actual report, which takes all this information and presents it to the judges. But then you also have your event day discussion, where you'll discuss your actual report, and then your cost scenario, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. All right, so the big thing. So changes to the cost event from last year to this year. So for any students that were part of the FSAE competitions last year, we had an online event. It was slightly different than previous years, so there were a few different things. For people who are new, you may not have experienced that last year, so this is just sort of showing you that going into this year, we're sort of getting back into the normal things. So your cost report does require all sections. Last year it did not. Only a portion of your report was required, but for this year, everything is required. So everything that is typically included in the cost report, from your wheel nuts to the frame, all has to be included. The cost judging and audit will be combined, which is similar to what we did last year. So instead of going to cost judging and then the cheapest car is going to cost audit, all cars will go through the same cost judging process, where we try to dive deep into your vehicle a little bit more than we typically have, to try to find some mistakes that you made or any errors that we can help you fix for following competitions and following years. And part of this is it's become very easy to review reports online, which allows us to do that. So with the online cost system, it makes it extremely easy to look at issues, look at different subsystems, and judge you guys on that. Cost event is taking place on site. Last year we had an online cost event. This year it will be on site. Details about the event layout and the process will be posted to fsaeonline.com when available. We're still working through some of those details, so please follow on the news section of that site, as well as the cost section of that site for details. Real case will be similar to last year. So previously in older years, we had a sort of a generic cut the cost by 15%. Last year and this year, we're going a little more in depth. So you'll have a question that you have to sort of think about a little more. That will be part of your event day discussion. So after your cost judging, you'll have a certain amount of time to discuss your real case and present it to the judges. Again, details to the real case scenario, what that question is, and the format that you need to present in, it will be posted on FSAE Online, so please keep an eye on that. All right, rules. So know your deadlines. If you miss deadlines, you're going to lose points. You don't want to do that. Some other rules that are important. The S352, all assemblies, parts, fasteners, and the bottom must use a standard numbering convention. So when you're filling out your cost report, there is a section to fill in part numbers and stuff like that. Don't ignore that. That's really good information. It helps you stay organized, and it also helps the cost event report look good. And it does feed into your score. So please pay attention to that. There's a cost supplement on the FSAE Online, and there's a cost module guide as well. Both these documents will help you understand how to fill out your cost report, how it all works together, and then how the online system works. Some of you may not have experienced the online cost system yet, so the cost module guide is a very good source on seeing how it works. Again, both these resources are available on FSAE Online. I would suggest anyone working on the cost report read these and familiarize yourself with what's in them. Make versus buy. This is a big one. Look at the rules and your options when costing new components. Some components you can cost as buy, some you can cost as make, and some you can do as both. So take some time and look at that when you're going through your cost report. Again, read the rules and the cost documents. If you don't read the rules and you don't read the cost documents, you're not going to know how you have to fill this stuff out, how it should be together, and you can lose points in your cost score, which we don't want you guys to do. Deadlines. Again, there's no excuse for late submissions. 1 day late can be the difference between first place and 10th place at a competition. I've seen, if you look at the overall scores at competition, it gets that close sometimes. So each day late is a 10-point penalty. And after 5 days after the deadline, you are removed from the cost event completely and lose all 100 points. So you can lose up to 50 points. And then at the sixth, after that, you'll lose all 100 points. So we don't want you to do that. So please submit your reports on time. The May event, Monday, April 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the June event, Monday, May 9th at 10 a.m. So typically we had midnight deliverables, so now it's 10 a.m. So, I know when I was part of SAE, we were staying up late trying to get stuff done, but, this gives you a little bit of time to, submit it the night before and not have to worry about it. Start your cost reports now. If you have not, I would highly suggest that you start them now. Even if you only have a few things in your vehicle designed and can only cost 1 or 2 subsystems, do it now because it'll save you down the road. There's a lot of things in the vehicle you have to cost. It takes a lot of time. It may not seem like it does, but it does. So please start working on it now. If you had last year's cost report in the online system, it's extremely easy to copy over last year's vehicle and make changes to that. So, not everyone builds a 100% brand new vehicle. Your frame is sort of manufactured the same way. So it's easy to copy that over and then make edits to, how much material you used, how much cutting you did, etc. So that, take advantage of the cost report system being online. It's definitely helpful. The report. Who's in charge of your cost report? Do you have a cost report captain? If you don't, I would highly suggest you do. Just like you might have a design captain, you might have a engineering captain on the team, you should have a cost report captain. That person should sit down with all your subsystem captains and fill out their section. The person designing the frame will be the best person to talk to fill out the cost report, and that cost report captain can really utilize those teammates and understanding the format of the cost report to really put it together and get it moving quickly. What's the best way to manufacture something? There's multiple ways. So, you might plasma cut a piece of sheet metal, you might water cut. There's different costs to that. So take that into account when you're manufacturing your components and how it fills into the report. Same thing with tapped holes. If you're hand tapping holes on a piece that you machine versus threading it while it's on the CNC, there's a different cost to that as well. So take into account those things during your manufacturing. Not only do you need to include all the costs in your process, but pictures of your processes, manufacturing, or assembling a vehicle are extremely helpful to the cost report. It gives you a little edge above others as well. So including those in the files as PDF or JPEGs will really help the cost judges understand what you're manufacturing, and it also can help you with your cost judging scoring as well in your final report. The online cost report as well. So make sure that you still review it for errors. Just because it's an online system doesn't mean there could be math errors. It doesn't mean there couldn't be some typos, stuff like that. So please review your final cost report before you submit it. There's also a document requirements part of the rules that you should read. It talks about how you submit your documents and the format that needs to be submitted. And again, read the cost event supplement files on the FSA Online. They go into a lot of these items in much more detail than I can here. and it'll help you fill out that cost report even better. Common mistakes. So these are sort of the most common mistakes that we see as cost judges. Forgetting the reaction tool. If you're assembling something with a bolt and nut, you need a reaction tool in the process for the nut. Everyone always includes the ratchet or the nut driver or you know, the impact gun, but they almost always forget the wrench on the backside holding the nut. So don't forget that. That can add up to a lot of money on your cost report. Process multipliers. When you're machining components, it's much easier to machine a piece of plastic than it is a piece of stainless steel. Anyone who's run a CNC on your team knows that. So there's a multiplier for all materials being machined that you have to take into account. We look for this on your cost report. Finishes and paint. This is a unique one. If you paint your vehicle specifically for the beautification of the vehicle, it is not required to be costed. But if you paint it for protection of rust, you know, tarnish, anything like that, it does have to be costed. So one thing we'll ask you at competition is why you painted your vehicle. If you give us, if you tell us you did it to stop rust and you didn't cost the paint, well, then you can get docked for that. So make sure that you guys take that into account. Welding fixtures. Each point on a component that you're welding is a pickup point or a support point. So for example, for a frame, this would be equal to the number of nodes plus any brackets that you've attached to the frame. So even if you build a frame jig out of extruded aluminum or PDF, or MDF or anything like that, and it might be only touching the frame in, let's say, 16 spots, that's not your actual costing of the weld fixture. The welding fixture would be for every single node on the frame. So please take that into account when you're welding frames, other steel structures, anything like that, anything that uses fixtures to hold it in place, you need to take that into account. Again, these are just common mistakes. There's plenty others that you guys need to watch out for. The event day discussion. So again, this is going to be on site on the day of the cost event. Be prepared and know what's going to happen on event day. Again, that information is going to be posted on FSA online. Know where you need to go. Know what documents you need to bring, if any, and be ready to discuss. So once you arrive, the judge will provide you with an initial assessment of the cost accuracy and areas in your report that we might have found some issues, we might have found some penalties, some stuff that we couldn't find. And we're going to ask you to go through your cost report and show us, if we couldn't find something, where is it, and try to justify your cost report there. So we're going to go through that, and as I mentioned, in a little more detail than previous years. So we're going to dive deep into a few items for this one. Again, if you find any issues with penalties that you were assigned, you will need to request a review afterwards due to time constraints of the overall competition, trying to get all the teams through. We don't have time at the actual cost event to go through any penalties that you get assigned after the cost event. So please, if you have any concerns, make those requests at the end of the cost event, and we'll go from there for that. If you followed the rules and documented everything where they should be in the cost report, in theory, you should not receive any penalties. Penalties are for missing components, if you miss, assembly processes, anything like that. If you fill everything out, there should be no issues with your cost report. The real case scenario. So the real case scenario is worth a lot of points, and it will be discussed with you at the end of the event day discussion. Real case is posted before competition with details on what it is. Again, it's posted on FSA online. So as soon as that's posted, get started working on it. Again, as I mentioned, the questions this year are going to be a little more in-depth. So the sooner you start, the sooner you guys will be able to finish that up and be able to focus on the actual car and doing your racing. If you have to work on your cost report scenario, the day of the event or something like that, it's not going to work out well for you. go above and beyond than just discussing with your judges. You might have taken some notes or have an idea on how you want to answer the question. Go a little bit above and beyond. Maybe make a poster. Come up with multiple examples. Do something to go above and beyond to try to stand out compared to the other teams. You are timed on this as well, so please make sure you have a clear and concise presentation and answer. Don't go on for 20-30 minutes, so you won't have that much time. You should only have about 5 or 10 minutes for this. So again, that time limit will be posted on SAE Online. Again, bring some physical samples, poster boards, binders with examples of different answers that you could have, even physical parts. You might change a part because of this question. If you have a 3D printed sample or an old part from an old car, bring that with you. Anything that you can help to convey your answer to the judges is definitely going to help you. Be prepared to discuss your decisions and any disadvantages to those decisions. There may be, a lot of pros, but there might be a lot of cons as well. We want to know, have you really thought about those cons to the decision you're making? And again, review the real case judge scoring sheet. Just like the design event, we post a scoring sheet for the cost event. And it's typically broken down by financial, manufacturing, staffing, marketing, and data analysis. Again, this year it'll be posted to SAE Online. Keep an eye out for that, and take that into account when you're working on your real case scenario. All right. So in conclusion, we covered the introduction, the changes to the event, the rules, the deadlines, the report, common mistakes, the event day discussion, and real case scenario. So if the teams have any other questions or anything that you have, as Matt said, please send it to the chat, and we can answer those questions for you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. If you can go back one slide. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I have a few questions for you, and please, if anybody who's on the call right now has a question, please feel free to enter it in the chat box. I have it open right now, but I've got a handful of questions for you, Richard. What characteristics differentiates a team that's like in the top 10 versus the rest of the competition? Is it the cost scenario? Is it they bringing iPads to the audit or to the cost event? Is it like, can you maybe break it down a little bit? Like what really sets a top 10 team up versus the rest of the competition?
Yeah, definitely. So, going into the cost event to be a top 10 team in cost, it's not always 100% about the cost of the actual vehicle. Yes, the cost of the actual vehicle does play a part into it, and a cheaper vehicle typically does place higher in the event than others. But I've seen it where teams that might be a few $1,000s more than the cheapest car place in the top 10 or even top 5. So it's definitely possible. And the reason those teams do so well is because of them preparing all the documentation beforehand. Again, out of that 100 points, about 40 of it goes to the cost score, but the other 60 goes to other things. So it goes to how accurate your report is. Do you have supporting documents or anything like that? So as I mentioned, like including photos in your cost report can be the difference between getting 20 points on your report score versus 18. The real case is typically 20 points, sometimes even more. We're still working on some of the cost or the point balancing, but if you're prepared for your real case, you have let's say the question is asking for some specific answer, and you give 3 examples. You've researched those 3 examples. You gave the pros and cons for those 3 examples. Maybe you made a sample cost report for those 3 examples as well. Then all of a sudden, instead of getting maybe 16, 17, 18 points in real case, you're getting all 20, and those few points can be the difference between 10th place and 1st place, or 10th place and 5th. in the cost event, because it gets really close at the very top end of that scoreboard. I would suggest looking at previous events as well, looking at those scores. You can see, a difference of a few points can be, a lot of places in the event. And then, like I said, the accuracy of your cost report. If you guys have your cost report from last year in the online system, it's very easy to copy over and make improvements, fix stuff that you missed last year, and do even better for this year. Taking notes as well. If you guys know that we'll give you some feedback, and we tell you, this is an area you need to work on. Well, then next year you do the same. You improve on those areas, you do even better. But pairing before the event and getting stuff done early, I think, is the number one thing for the cost event to do well in it. Like I said, the cost event, it is a lot of work, but it's not hard. Compared to the design event or the building of the actual car. I think cost is one of the easier events, just because it's just being diligent in documenting your numbers and documenting your processes. And if you do that, you'll naturally rise to the top of the scoreboard.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Is there when looking at the past, would you say, like, the top 5 teams, top 3 teams, what really separates them from the rest of the top 10? Is it 0 penalties? Is it they were extremely prepared, had really good answers? Like what makes a top 3 team?
Yeah, so penalties are, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, is there something that really defines a top 3 team versus the rest? Like, when someone wants to get first place, I know you've just explained a lot about what makes the difference between a top 10 team and the rest of the competition, but is there anything that really stands out for a top 3 team?
Yeah, so I would say once you start getting the top 5, top 3, it does start coming down a little bit to the actual cost of your vehicle. So that's one aspect of it. Obviously if you're building a carbon fiber monocoque with some crazy engine and all these extra features, unfortunately those cars probably aren't going to get into that top 3 spot or even win the cost event, just because that does affect your cost score. But the teams that really win and win consistently, no penalties, that's a huge part. Again, a penalty at competition is typically a point or half a point. And as I said, 1 or 2 points can be the difference between first and third, or third and fifth. So avoiding all those penalties as best as you can is a huge thing for you. And as the cost event, it is cost based too. So taking that into consideration, you're building your car. If you can do a cheaper car, it's definitely good for not only your customer, in regards to marketing and all that, but it helps you in the cost event. We, as from personal experience, winning a few competitions, we didn't have a super cheap car. We had a steel frame, but we had a 4-cylinder Honda engine. We had pneumatic shifting. We had a data logging. We had a lot of unique things on our vehicle that led us to do well in the dynamic events, but we still did very well in cost. Even though we weren't the cheapest car, from my memory, we were still about $2,000, $3,000 more expensive than the cheapest car in competition, but we did well because we had no penalties, and we made sure we got all 20 points in our real case event, and we made sure that in our cost report we didn't lose any points as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. When should a team start? This is a 2-part question. When should a team start working on the cost event? I know you said right away. And is your answer different between a very experienced team and like a first-year team?
Yeah, so that's definitely a good question. So teams that are a multi-year team, or maybe people that have been on the team for 2-3 years now, with the new online system, you guys have last year's cost report, or maybe you have a couple of years of cost reports now. I think this is the third or fourth year that we've been running the online cost system. So for a team that's been doing this for a while, you have that history of an online cost report file that you already created from old cars. Now granted, your new car might be 100% completely different. In most cases, you guys carry over some stuff with your cars. So you get a little bit of advantage of copying over old data and then modifying the numbers for, you know, different weights, different lengths of stuff, and all that. So that definitely helps the experienced teams with updating the cost report. For teams that are, you know, let's say this is your first year team, or first year that you're a team and you're trying to get everything together. Doing the cost report, as I said, as soon as possible is again, one thing I suggest, but having a person on your team that is the cost report judge, or not judge, but team leader, I think is very important. You know, you might be a small team, you might only have a dozen people, so you might only have one person doing the cost report. If that one person just takes the time to, you know, again, talk to other people on the team and start putting together just like a rough idea of what needs to be in the cost report now, you know, you sort of have an idea of what a frame needs to be. You know, you need the steel pipes, you need to, you know, cut them, you know, weld them, you need a frame. You can put in rough numbers now, and then as you start making your car, or as you start finishing the CAD for your car, you start knowing what those numbers need to be. You know, you might now know, okay, my frame's 55 pounds. Okay, so now I know I need 55 pounds of steel. And then all you have to do is go into the online cost report system. It has the steel, you know, if you already added the steel to your materials list and you just put in, you know, X number, and now you can just change that number and you steel updated. So, okay, you know, you don't have to attack the cost report all at once. It's very easy to do a very small portion of it, or, you know, make rough estimates at first and refine it as you go towards competition. So that's one thing I would suggest, and that's something that we did as a team as well. Is we put in rough numbers, and then as we got closer to finalizing CAD and finalizing the manufacturing of the vehicle, it was much easier to edit those numbers, or, you know, move stuff around a little bit rather than starting from scratch.
Okay.
So, you know, that's I think would be the best suggestion I would have for you as a
All right.
team.
So you kind of went into my next question a little bit, but before I get to it, I just want to remind everybody, to our participants, if you have a question, please use the chat function to let me know what your question or comment is. So digging into a little bit about the timing and planning, should the students responsible for cost have a say in the design of the vehicle?
Yeah, so this is a big question then, and it's definitely something that we as professionals have to deal with every day. At GM for yourself, me at Ford, you know, cost is a top priority when you get into the real world. So that's definitely a big part of it. On the FSA level, it gets a little interesting. So obviously, you guys want to build the fastest, the coolest looking car, the one that, you know, wows the competition. So you know, it gets a little difficult when you get to the FSA level where you're saying, okay, we need to cut back costs on something to you know, do a little bit better in the event. Like I said before, cost is important, but it's not 100% of the cost report. So if you guys, you know, like I said, we did a steel frame, but then we had a really fancy ECU and data logger, and we had pneumatic shifting in our cars. So if you guys still want to do those, you know, unique ideas, there's ways you can design components to make those wow factors on the vehicles, or the cool factors, but still do it in a cheaper way. You know, for the pneumatics, I could 3D print a bracket, which costs a bit of money, or I can make it out of some sheet steel, and it weighs about the same. You know, it might be a few grams more, but it's much cheaper to manufacture. So what we try to tell our team members when we're on the team is just be conscious of the way you design components. You know, like I said, you can design the craziest component in the vehicle. It might not be manufacturable and it might not be the cheapest. So just keep that in mind when you're designing components on your vehicle. It's sort of the idea and the direction that we try to give our team members. And more or less, it seemed to work out for us, where we were able to, you know, design components that, you know, were relatively cost effective and still performed quite well. You know, some of those years that we at Wayne State, when we placed first or second in the cost event, some of those years we've also placed top 10 in competition, and we did very well in the dynamic event. And that's because our car was, you know, we sort of thought it out as we were going. One thing, the ones, you know, saying people like, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. That's a nice, you know, historic, you know, saying that we say in engineering and stuff like that. You know, like, you can design a really fancy component. It might fail because it's fancy. So, you know, if you design something a little bit simpler, not only will it probably be cheaper, but you're probably going to have less issues with it at competition in the dynamic event. So that's something to consider as well when you're designing parts for your vehicle.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you for that. Should a team self-audit themselves before going to competition? And then my second part to that is, if so, would you recommend a team doing it throughout the year as they're building the vehicle, as maybe designs are changing?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question as well. And it's something I didn't mention before, is, you know, in regard to top teams. So we at Wayne State, we did an audit in a mock cost event sort of before the competition. So what we did was we sent our cost report to alumni who either, you know, worked on the cost report beforehand in previous years, or you know, volunteer for the competition now. And we asked them, hey, can you take a look at this? Did you see? Can you point out any issues that we might be missing? And about 50% of the time, some of our alumni will come back and say, like, hey, yeah, you know, I did, you know, drivetrain, and I noticed you're missing something here and everything. And that's a really good way to, you know, try to double check yourself to make sure, you know, you're not missing things. You know, if you're looking for cost report, you know, a couple hours a day for a couple weeks, there's gonna be stuff that you miss because you just, you know, you're so used to it, you get blind to it. So having that outside perspective is very important, I think, to your cost process. And again, you know, even if you don't have alumni, or maybe you don't have anyone you can go to, asking people on the team that don't work on the cost report, just say, hey, can you look at, I know you work on, you know, the frame, can you look at the frame section to see if you see anything wrong? You know, the more eyes you can put on your cost report, the better to try to identify those issues or things that they might miss. Because, you know, you as a cost team member might think in a specific way, and then a different team member might think in a completely different way and think of something that you never thought of before. So definitely adding eyes to your cost report to review it is very important. And in regards to doing it throughout the year, of course, if you guys start your cost report, you know, in January or February, keep looking at it. You know, again, like, say, hey, you know, to your frame guy, can you look at the frame section, see if there's anything that you can point out or anything like that. Doing that throughout the year, it'll save you, because when you get close to competition, you know, all the teams know, you know, it's all hands on deck. You know, you're trying to finish the car, you're trying to get some testing done, you're painting components, you're assembling the vehicle sometimes. You don't have that much time, you know, those few weeks before competition to focus on the static events. So it's really important to get those things done early, and it'll really help you down the road if you do that.
Okay, great. Is there anything right after a competition that the team can do to prepare themselves for next year? Is there some key takeaways they should take, or review their outcome after comp a week or two later?
Yep. Yes, that's a good point. Now with the online system, it helps a little bit because some of the items we report online. But at event competition, you typically get across, feedback form or something like that, and we have some notes on it typically of, we saw an issue here, we saw this issue there. Same thing with the, you see that in design event a lot as well. You get your feedback form, and it has a lot of information on that. Keep that with you. What we typically did at Wayne State is we had a binder for every single competition year just for the cost event. It actually had our cost report in it, and we in the front of that binder, we kept a few pieces of paper from either the feedback from competition and notes that we sort of took, at the event. So, while you're doing your cross event at the competition, if there's someone there that, if you guys are lucky enough to have enough people to go to cost event, typically sometimes only 1 or 2 people show up just because teams are small. But if you're able to have, 2 or 3 or even 4 people show up, and have someone just taking notes on stuff that you guys missed, or stuff that you're seeing that you need to work on for next year, keep those notes in that binder so that when the next year comes along, you have that information and you have those directions to sort of give you an edge for those following years. We always did a post-event meeting as well. So we sat in a room for probably a good 2-3 hours after competition, a day or 2 later, and talked about what went right, what went wrong, not just for a cost event, but for all the events. But definitely doing that and including some time to talk about costs is definitely important as well. It'll really help you down the road.
Okay. You kind of touched on my last question that I received, and I just want to make one more statement. If anybody has any questions, please send them to me through the chat box. You'll have to turn the chat box open if you don't have it open. What would you recommend for a first-year team that only has 5 people? And I've seen a lot of teams like this working as a tech inspector in the past. There's only a handful of people on a team. You're never going to get everything done. What do you think a team can really focus on? A small first-year team. Is there anything that no matter what they have to hit it?
Yeah. So as my first year, I joined Wayne State in 2010, and this sort of shows my age. But in 2010, when I joined the team, we had 6 people on the team. And it was definitely difficult. At that time, we weren't the top team in cost event, and that's because, unfortunately, there are some decisions you have to make, and sometimes you do have to focus on, the cost event, or the design event, or just getting the car done. As a small team like that, submitting something at least to meet your deadlines, I think is the biggest thing. So even if you put together a cost report, and even if you're missing a lot of the really refined details, as long as you submit something by the deadline, that's really going to help you down the road, because you won't get your penalties, you won't lose all 100 points. Even if you submit a cost report and you're missing, a dozen things, and let's say you lose 10 points at competition because of issues that we found. Losing 10 points at competition versus losing all 50, 50 for the 5-day late penalty, or 100 if you just don't submit anything, it's miles different. Even if you only, a team that does, I would say not well in the cost, and maybe you only get 40 points out of the 100. I'll take 40 points all day over 0. So like I said, just try to submit something, even if you feel that it's not, 100% done. As long as you guys put in some effort and get like a rough cost report started and in the system, it's going to help you miles when you get to the next year competition, or maybe even going from May to June. The deadline for the June competition, I think about a month or 2 later. You might have a very rough cost report for the May event, but then by the June event, or then all of a sudden you can make some major improvements over that month going into that. And like I said, even if you don't, and you're a first-year team, and now you're going into your second year, now you have a basis on, okay, I have a rough draft of my cost report. Now I don't have to redo that this year. I can spend some time refining it and do even better. You know, no team goes from 0 to 100%. It's all about incremental improvements, and anything you do just to, you know, make those baby steps to get better and better every year is hugely important to the overall team. And it also leads to a team's longevity as well. Teams that sort of, you know, take those baby steps and, you know, keep that, you know, history of the team. You know, you have the old cost reports, you know, you save your old design reports. Those, keeping those things and that sort of bookkeeping side of things, it'll help your team continue for years and years and years.
Okay, thank you for that. I haven't received any more questions. I guess if someone does have questions in the future, I see that you've included your email address. Would you want to put a plug in about where else they can go besides your email for future questions if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so obviously my email's there for support. You know, this is my work email, but again, if you guys have any questions, you can definitely ask me. If you don't want to ask me, I know we have, there's a lot of other sources. There's obviously SSAE online. I believe there's some help areas as well on the site. And I'm not sure if the forums are still up, but I know there was SSAE forums for a while, and a lot of people go on there for discussions. And even more recently, you know, it's not as official, but there's the Reddit, SSAE Reddit group that a lot of teams are on, and there are some judges on there as well. I myself am on there, and a lot of people post questions. And it's similar to the SSAE forums where, you know, people can post questions and stuff like that. It may not be an official answer from SAE, but you can get some input from other teams. For official answers and questions like that, if you have a rules question or you know, you're looking for an official answer from SAE, there is a sort of submit a question section where you can submit a rules clarification or a rules question or any type of sort of clarification on something in regards to the documentation. You can submit that, and typically you'll get a response back there from a judge or a volunteer that's working on that event, giving you sort of an official response as well. So that's a good place for, you know, official rule questions, and then just for, like, you know, overall discussions. Like I said, SSAE forums or the Reddit page are really good for, you know, inter-team discussion for you know, answering those questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. Can you go to the next slide for me?
Yep.
All right. I just want to remind everybody of some upcoming events. Friday, February 18th is our rescheduled presentation event overview for Formula SAE with Adam Zemke. I'll be moderating that event as well. And if you'd like to check out some of our past events that we've had, please find us on YouTube. And to commemorate the 2020 Engineering Week, SAE International has a bunch of activities coming up on the 21st through the 25th, listed there on your screen. If you volunteer, you have a chance to win a pair of Apple AirPods Pro. So very nice. You can go to SAE.org. You'll see the link there on the slide. So definitely check that out. And if you can go to the next slide for me, Richard. Awesome. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to our participants for joining us today. A special thank you to today's presenter, Richard. You've been great. The SAE Detroit section staff, Alba Cologne, for your involvement in putting together today's presentation. Please remember to join us next Friday, February 18th, for the Formula SAE presentation event overview. For any questions or inquiries, please email the SAE Detroit section at events@SAE-Detroit.org, which is shown on the screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, please consider liking this video and sharing it with someone who might find it useful and subscribing to the SAE Detroit YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.